Good afternoon, Paul, and good afternoon all. We're back. How was your Sky weekend, Paul?
Yeah, it was okay, Fergi. Not too bad. Not a great day yesterday. Few high-owned players were in the top 1K done well, like Martinelli and Jesus, who I no longer own, but 64 points for the week so far. Don't know, feels a bit average.
Yeah, I think I got about, I'm on 61. Same really. I did make a sub. I was tempted to make 3 or 4, but I gave it a lot of thought because I was tempted to take out Cancelo, but obviously, not only just after his haul on the weekend, but that haul on the weekend kind of reminded us what he can do. Right, he's just an absolute animal, and I knew I would 100% want him back given their fixtures. So I actually took out Maddison instead, which may surprise a few. But I was having a look, and the only game I'd really worried about not owning him probably is the Leeds game, which would be a good captaincy option. I think next Thursday, whenever it is. Yeah. But if Mitrovic is back, I think he's a better option against. I think it's Villa that night anyway. So he's on 4 yellows as well. And apart from the 2 games where he has mega hauled, he hasn't done an awful lot. So I took the points and run because if I had have kept Maddison, I would have had to use more transfers to get Cancelo back, and then you get yourself into a bit of a muddle then, don't you? But I was tempted by Anderson for Palace, so I didn't do that. I brought Zaha in, and I was tempted by Mitrovic, but obviously he didn't start, so that took that decision out my hands anyway. But I was very eager to be kind of trigger happy yesterday. It didn't quite work out like that, but yeah, I was the same as you. I capped Salah. I was on and on about Zaha, but then I just thought, if I go Zaha, and Salah kicks off, I'll kick myself. So in the end, it didn't mean much. But the Jesus one, we talked about this last week, didn't we? Jesus against Liverpool. It probably wasn't as big as we thought it could be. But Liverpool defensively just all over the shop, and they.
Maddison jumped up to 65%, by the way. So you're due £2 to.
I saw that. Another bet I've lost.
Why don't we keep rolling it up till it comes to like a tenner? I don't think we should net off. I think if we should pay our dues for the fact that it's charity, but we'll maybe roll it up until we get to a tenner, and then we'll do it. So it's not admin.
Yeah,
intensive.
I agree. I like that. Good evening, everybody. In the chat, we have Boris the Blade, John A. Cornley, Julian Wardle, Matt Sky FF, Kaiser Sose, Matt Woolley, Colin Johnston, Johnny White, Connor Thompson, Sam Smith, Mark Williamson, Humble Monk, Kian McKenna, Glenn Murray, FPL Sparta, and Tim Barry. Good evening, everyone. Great to have you with us. Hope you had a good Sky weekend. What are we looking at today, Paul?
Just going to talk over some of the popular moves that was made over the weekend just past. I had put this as a topic before all the questions came through, but kind of doing with Salah, and the third point is around the top 1K ownership and the movements in and around there.
Yeah, we haven't really looked at the ownership much, have we? And it's quite interesting because I think last year especially, over the last 2 or 3 years, the top 11 or 12 players have basically formed 100 million, haven't they, I think? But I don't think that's the case this time, which shows that I think there's a lot of diversity in teams. Obviously makes the game much more interesting. But firstly, let's just have a chat about some of the transfers made on the weekend.
Yeah, so Zaha was the most popular move made. Excuse me. This is why I think that the top 1K is already a good indicator. If you look at Zaha's overall ownership change, it moved from 12.75 to 13.79. So it would look like a small move. But then if you look at he didn't haul, he got 5 points. But if you look at his top 1K change, it's moved from 14% to 38.3%.
Wow, that's high, isn't it?
So it's not that level below 1,000 dipping into the top 1,000. You think the majority of those moves were made by managers already in there. So I think the top 1K is a good indicator of activity amongst Sky managers now, albeit if you do look at a lot of the open teams in the kind of top 100, they are rattling through 4 or 5 transfers a week. I don't know if it's...
I was having a look on the weekend, and the guy who was top had used 5. Well, I think the top 3 I opened had all used like 4 or 5. It's not, we're still in that phase, aren't we, where the top 1,000 is not really the top 1,000. A lot of those managers won't be battling against come April and May, will we?
Yeah. Bowen moved from 4.3% to 10.2%. Martinelli jumped 11% in the top 1K. Jesus jumped 18% in the top 1K. So maybe some people outside the top 1,000 captained and moved in there. I mean, what's worse than owning Salah all this time and captain? I'm probably bringing him in yesterday. It's probably worse. So he's he jumped from 17.5% to 23.4%.
Did you captain him yesterday, Paul?
I did, yeah. I just that I brought in Zaha as well, so I made similar moves to you. I took out. I had Fofana. Fofana was injured, and so I moved him on to Zaha yesterday. So if I'm in doubt about a captain, I'll rather stick with the player that's already in my team. When it's not something that's obvious, like I think I made the point last week. If I had, say, Dean Henderson on the Monday night and I was bringing in Maddison, it's a little bit different. I was captain Maddison in that instance. And then Rashford jumped up 4% as well. That was interesting because he only scored 2 points. So again, it's probably not a lot of people creeping into the top 1,000 that owned them. But those that are making a lot of transfers in the top 1,000 made that move.
Lots of transfers being made still, isn't there? It's really hard. We were just having a little chat before we started. I am finding it very difficult, not just in Sky but in all formats, to just keep cool. And I think this year, I think I've managed to so far longer than I have in previous years. In previous years, I'd be sort of accelerating off now, trying to climb, trying to make rank, and just try. And then you always seem to kind of peak just a bit too early in like February or March, don't you? And then it's all downhill from there. So I'm trying to push the curve further along by holding back, but it is very, very tough. We've got a question actually, which we'll touch on later, about that. How do you avoid the FOMO? It's really, really tough, isn't it?
Yeah. So moving on to Salah. I'm not as I wouldn't say displeased, probably isn't the right word. I'm not as massively frustrated with him as I am as other Sky Fantasy managers are, perhaps. And it's because I don't see the need to use the budget that he's holding elsewhere at present. And it's probably because of the lack of big points coming from the big hitting defenders. There's quite a few options arising from Man City. So if I was looking to use some money there, I probably wouldn't be buying a Laporte, or I wouldn't be buying a Diaz. I'd be buying an Nkanji or an Ake instead, who are both 8 million. So it's not usually for me it's a budget thing, but at present it's not. So just looking at the fixtures, so Liverpool play City on Sunday, then they host West Ham midweek next week, then they play Forest on the 12:30 game on 22nd. You can't move on to a Man City player, which is a little bit frustrating. I'd maybe considered moving on to Foden. He seems to be playing a lot of I think he started every Premiership game this season, hasn't he?
He's absolutely on fire, isn't he?
But I don't own Martinelli, and his ownership concerns me quite a bit. So if I were to move off Salah, I think I'd be considering making a move to either Jesus or Martinelli on Sunday the 23rd.
Ahead of Liverpool home to Leeds.
Well, yeah, and I guess the option is you keep him for another week still, and then Arsenal play Nottingham Forest on Sunday the 30th as well. So those are a couple of options that I'm looking at, but I've got no immediate concerns about getting rid of him. He'll definitely be in my team for the next 3 games. And I doubt very much I would switch, even though a lot of Twitter pundits are getting really good, or Twitter content creators are getting really good at predicting Man City team sheets. Like Luke Williams, the Godfathers, is good at it. I don't know that I'd be risking taking Salah out when I see the team sheet for Liverpool against Nottingham Forest for a Man City team sheet that I don't get to see.
Yeah, it's a really tough one. I've had similar thoughts on Salah as well. Like watching him yesterday. I mean, what a strange formation, playing the 4, and he was just nowhere to be seen, was he? Really, he was not. He's not involved. They did have a shout for a penalty, which how that the same happened last week. Hand up next to his head, strikes his hand. Penalty not given. I don't really understand what's going there. I don't know if I've missed a rule change, but I thought it was this kind of hand in the natural position sort of thing. But anyway,
I started thinking about that, and then I was like, I don't know if it's my unconscious, like my bias coming into it. It's not unconscious. I didn't know if it was my bias coming in, because I was like, that's a penalty. It's definitely a penalty.
It was a penalty. His hand was up.
But then sitting with Salah as captain, I was like, I don't know if this is clouding my judgment.
But how is it not a penalty? That's like I can't answer the question of what is it that has made that not a penalty. I don't know.
I always find it interesting, the arguments that come out, and it's like, well, you've got that unnatural position, and you've got the deliberate. Well, not obviously, but it wasn't deliberate, was it? But it does look unnatural. He has made himself bigger. I never know which one of these arguments to reference. All you want though is a bit of consistency when you see something that's very similar to the next, that is the same decisions given.
But I thought I missed something, because the players and commentators didn't make a fuss either, and he didn't even get.
Well, this is why I thought it was my bias. Well, this is why I thought it was my bias that was coming into it.
The same happened last week. There was a very similar incident. I can't remember who it was, but it happened last week where the hand was up and it struck the hand, and there was just no argument at all. It was just like, no, it's not a penalty. I just find it bizarre. Anyway, I agree with you on Salah, and I think I'm in sort of. I think now, because when you go on, on the hub, on the Sky Planner, on FF stuff on the planner, I think I'm kind of in wind down mode almost now. You're approaching the overhaul and you're just trying to get to the overhaul. And you look at Liverpool's fixtures. Obviously, City, is not a pretty one, right? But you never know. City have looked, they do tend to give a stupid chance or two away every game, don't they? Even though they have clean sheets. Then home to West Ham, he's probably a good captaincy option. You would guess on that. Like Kane away to United. Other than that, it's not an awful lot there, I don't think. And then they have Forest, who we know have been absolutely terrible so far defensively, and then Leeds as well. Who've conceded 5 against Brentford, conceded 3 against Palace yesterday, and then Spurs and Southampton. So my question, same as yours, I suppose, is who do you take him out for? Like, who do I know, or who do I think I know will score more points than him? If you're doing it and spreading the funds, I can understand. I can understand it. But on the same note, if you're only doing it because you're sick of him, I think twice personally. If you're desperate to get in someone like that, a Jesus or Martinelli for that Forest captaincy, for example, on 30th of October, it's probably a good reason. If you go Salah to Jesus or Salah to Martinelli, I completely understand that. But just to get rid of him for something else, I'm not. I'm not really for it. I just think you could use your. I think for the volume of the volume of fixtures Liverpool have got in the short term, they've now got 3 to a lot of the teams. 1 and 2, haven't they, as well? So just hold on, and then maybe have a look after. He may surprise you. He may even play his way into form. Would you be surprised if he got a goal or 2 against Forest? He's hard to take out then ahead of Leeds. So, but yeah, we've had loads and loads of questions. Tim in the chat transferred Salah in yesterday. We've had a couple of other questions as well around whether to transfer him in. Most want to transfer him out. So yeah, I suppose my kind of my summary is I probably wouldn't be transferring him in yet, but I don't think I'd be transferring him out either. Is that yours as well, Paul? Or
that's mine. And there'll be others that have got more difficult situations. Like maybe some people don't have Kane.
They haven't got Kane. I think. I think that's
maybe that looks a bit more straightforward, or Cancelo as well. But not for me at present. I think that I'm still okay just sticking and then being pretty flexible, and if I do want to take them out in a few after they played the next 3 or 4.
What about Liverpool defenders? So we know that Trent looks like he might be injured. Van Dijk, I'm not sure. I'm assuming he got passing again yesterday, even though kind of 10 point.
You've got passing tier ones.
All tier one, but 10.7 million. I think that's how much it costs. It's a lot of money for 4 points or 5 every week, isn't it? So, what are your thoughts on those players at the moment? Is it kind of the same as it stands?
There's good hop-off points. So I'd be holding them again. I think I'd hold them for the next 3, and then move. There's an abundance of players that you could move on to at that same point. So because Liverpool play Forest on the Saturday and there's only 4 games on there, albeit Man City playing there, you've got Arsenal. You might have taken Jesus or Martinelli out for Maddison previously. Also, Jared Bowen or a West Ham asset against Bournemouth on the Monday night might be a good option to move your Liverpool defensive assets onto there as well if a formation change allows it.
Yeah, agree. Sam Arundel asks, any thought from Maddison to Foden? I wouldn't be doing it yet. I would probably be doing that after next Thursday. So assuming you captain him against Leeds, you'd have a 3-for-1 for Maddison over Foden still. And then you could move on to Foden for the Brighton game on Saturday, the 22nd. I think that would probably be the best one there, Sam. Agree on Liverpool. I think a lot of us have been waiting for this little mini run, haven't we, now for Liverpool? This City, okay, that's going to be a tough game, right? But then home to West Ham and then Forest. And then we're kind of into the final throws. Then we're into the final fortnight. And you just think, is it then worth a transfer or not? Considering that 2 of the last 3 are home against Leeds and Southampton as well. I'm just not so sure. I just think, are you so sure that it's going to be worth a transfer? I would just ask myself on all these players, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure it's going to be. Okay, for the first time this season, let's have a look at the top 1K ownership. We've got Haaland at the top in only 91.2% of teams. Jesus still in 71%. That is massive ownership for Jesus. That Forest game coming up is quite scary, actually. They're away to Leeds, away to Southampton, home to Forest. Still quite a nice run for it's quite a nice run for Jesus as well, isn't it? Salah 70.8, amazing value. Cancelo only 58. Quite surprised at that. I've got to be honest, especially since he hauled on the weekend as well. Yep. Kane 52, Martinelli 52.
And maybe we should have a look at Cancelo's ownership come Sunday morning, and then you can see if a few people that are trigger happy with transfers or are trying to take advantage of a kind of 3-for-1 situation, perhaps move them on as well. It was Martinelli. When I looked at it yesterday, and he was just in play, and he was destroying my rank. I had no idea he was as high as 41%, and the only reason why I'm surprised at how high it is, because he's obviously done well at the start of the season, is if you're thinking about captaincy and having kind of 1 or 2 players from every team, Jesus' ownership was so high, Saliba's ownership was so high, it was kind of, that felt like good Arsenal coverage for me, and that Martinelli might have been expendable, but it looks like at 8 million, I'm thinking about trying to get him in. It might not even be for Salah, but trying to get him in on that Sunday after the blank midweek for them. A couple other thoughts on there. As say, Bowen kind of crept in at bottom. Brennan Johnson is probably getting held for captaincy tonight. Akanji, a lot of people admit 17.3%, so he picked up 12 points at the weekend. It was a massively good return. Paulinho only 18.3%. I was so frustrated they removed that last tackle from him yesterday to give him the tackle bonus. It's quite frustrating. Nick Pope must be frustrating managers. It's 3 2s on the bounce, and from a good run of fixtures from them as well.
And we mentioned Zaha earlier, 38. Foden is high as well, 37.6. I've definitely got my eye on Foden. He basically looks like he's almost playing in like a 4-4-2 up alongside Haaland only at the moment. So I think he looks incredible. And that run of 4 games they've got, Saturday 22nd, home to Brighton, away to Leicester, home to Fulham, home to Brentford. I mean, they could be any scores, right? So I think I am wondering whether we'll see a bit of a shift around during that period. For maybe a bit of Foden, a bit of a Kanji, and try and have a bit of a final hurrah, like a jump on Man City for those fixtures, because you would guess that the defenders are going to get passing as a minimum, probably 2 or 3 clean sheets out of those four as well. Just on Akanji, Pep's been praising him up massively. He's been saying he's fitted right in. He's exactly what we need. He's been absolutely superb. I just, you're just never sure on Man City around whether they're going to start. How much of a risk do you think he is?
So I was doing the maths. So I was thinking, right, there's four defenders obviously going to play. Like City never play a back three or back five, so four defenders going to play. Cancelo, you say plays every game. I know he'll get the odd rest. So you've got five defenders, like Stones and Walker's out. So you've got five defenders into three slots. So if they played the average number of games, they'd play 60% of the games. Maybe Akanji plays a little bit more because, as I say, I think Pep favours Cancelo from the left than he does on the right. But even if we're taking averages, 60% appearances, like you're keeping clean sheets in the majority of games, and you're definitely picking up passing bonus. Yeah. And you add, Akanji's more tackle bonus than I would think from an offensive point of view, but for 8 million, it could still be worth it.
What a price!
And Ake probably falls in the same category for me as well.
I think Stones. I think he might be back in a couple of weeks. So this is the things where we're Monday, 10th of October. So this run we're talking about starts a week Saturday. So we're still a fortnight away, I would say, from this. Because obviously they play Liverpool next Sunday. Probably not going to bring them in then. So it does start the following Saturday, and then they have 4 games in like 3 weeks or something. Really, really good games. By that time, if Stones is back, because that's where Stones plays on that side, isn't it? I'm just not sure. It may just be at the time. There may be another injury. There may be another setback. Yep. We're talking about Martinelli. Like he's obviously on incredible form, but Emile Smith-Rowe just keeps getting setback after setback, don't he? So he's just got a free run at that position. He's not being brought off hardly anymore, is he? Which he was last year for Smith-Rowe. Yeah.
That midfielder slot that I always reference as the 2-2-2, 15, 2-2, 10 just seems like rife with like players that were hitting form at the same time. Though, like you've got Foden, Zaha. I know Maddison blanked there, but that's Bowen. Coming off for an 18-pointer. Bowen, João Palhinha, who's one of the best value players in the game. McAllister, who we've not talked about, picked up another 7 points the weekend. He seems to be in like a playmaker type role for.
He's in that kind of quarterback role, isn't he? I was watching him on the weekend against Spurs, and he was he's everywhere. He's right at smack bang in the centre of that team, just spraying the ball around. Yeah. He got something like 90-something passes, didn't he?
I'd picked up tackle bonus. Had one shot as well. I'm like, I don't depend on penalties, but if you got a penalty in that game, like he's hitting the full works, right? Shooting, passing, tackling bonus.
That's a proper haul. He is definitely now on my radar for Friday captaincy. After that performance, not just to bring in obviously for the captaincy, but as an enabler moving forward, he looks really, really good. Interesting stuff there. And as I said, if you look at the prices of those top 15 or 20 players, Saliba's cheap 7.4, Trippier 7.8, and Martinelli 8. But I think nearly everyone else is well over 8, 9, 10, 11 million. It's good. We got a lot of diversity, which is brilliant for the game. And I really do think getting rid of that early overhaul has made it a much better game, much more exciting game. Really, really enjoying Sky this year. And average transfers, we had them last Friday.
I don't know how they surprise me every year, but they've managed to surprise me how low they are even this year with the 50. So top 10, 20.8, top 100, 26.9, top 1,000, 31. Like the top 1,000 would surprise me. I thought that would be higher, and then top 5,000 is 34.5. Yeah,
mental.
I mean, that's like, there was a couple of questions last week about, and I know that if people aren't playing a lot of leagues, I guess their ambition is to finish top 4 to get paid. Like, was it top 4? Not top 3 get paid the overall prizes in the game. I'm thinking of the 2, 5, 10, 20 leagues. But that's surely enough to give you a feel-good factor back knowing that you could use a lot of the transfers to catch up, and because Liverpool and City are playing on the same day for the majority of the way through to the overhaul, that the peripheral games on the other days, there's good opportunities to pick a big captain that could do well.
We may as well ask the question now while we're on the slide, Paul. But how many transfers do you currently plan to have left that overhaul? I know it may slightly change every week.
35 is my plan.
35, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
I think at the moment, probably around maybe, I hope for 40 or 39, but more realistically, it's going to be 38 because there will be something I want to kind of dive into. I think at the moment, but yeah, got like a loose-ish plan. McAllister on Friday. I do like the look of Mitrovic still. I hope he's back on Saturday. Another couple of moves maybe in the future. Maybe get rid of Salah. Do an Arsenal player, maybe Martinelli, maybe Jesus, depending on how the team is looking a bit closer. That West Ham Bournemouth game is a bit of a fly in the ointment as well if you don't own Bowen. I think at the moment I do like Scamacca as well. I think that's really good. But yeah, interesting stuff. Let's have a look at Game Week 11 preview. Actually, firstly, let's have a look at this evening. So there's a obviously match starting in about 2 hours' time. The much-awaited Nottingham Forest versus Aston Villa. Not much to shout about there, Paul, really. Have you got a captain for this evening?
Maybe.
Ooh, you sneaky boy. You sneaky. Actually, you did mention something last week's pod or nip and a half, didn't you?
I brought in Henderson like ages ago.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know that.
I am like almost instantly regretted it, and it's actually not worked out too bad because I've used the budget elsewhere because I didn't have Cancelo and I brought in Cancelo in time for his 19-point haul. So and Alisson's done nothing. So yeah. So I'm quite happy having Henderson tonight. He could do well.
Yeah, well, they got
Villa.
Yeah, we had a question off Dan Cox. Is it worth just not captaining him in case he ends up with another minus? But I can't see Villa scoring 3 or 4 goals, so I think you'd be all right there. I think you're right there, Dan. You say maybe even outside Jonathan clean sheet. I got Brennan Johnson. I've just been holding him. I've never really because of his really awkward price, I've never really been able to get into a position to get rid of him. But this is where yesterday the move I did allows me now to do Brennan Johnson to McAllister on Friday. So I am over the moon that I'm finally being able to get rid of him. Yeah, he scored a couple of goals to be fair, but he hasn't, he doesn't look dangerous. So I'm hoping for a sneaky penalty this evening or something, just as a goodbye gift. Paul, if you didn't own anyone this evening, who would you bring in? You just wouldn't at all, would you?
I'd even know that I would move Fofana on to someone to captain. I'd like
just because you're gonna have to move him on again.
Oh yeah, I don't know. Ollie Watkins just doesn't interest me as an asset. Yeah, if all it takes is to score 1 goal and you double up the points, and Villa's fixtures are okay. Well, they got Chelsea at home after this. Then they play midweek as well.
Yeah,
don't
if
they?
you don't have Maddison, you could get him in this evening, and he would provide some kind of captaincy cover next Thursday against Fulham as well. There's only
it's Aston Villa, Forest.
Yeah,
Maddison.
That's what I said. No, sorry. If you don't own Maddison, you could get Watkins in this evening for the captaincy, but then next Thursday, because you don't own Maddison, you would have him as captain there if you don't have Maddison or Mitrovic.
Or Mitrovic.
Or Mitrovic. It's not a bad. It's just an option. I'm not saying to do it, but Forest defensively, have been awful. So you could definitely make worse moves. I think personally. Not much else really on this evening's fixture. It's not the most glamorous or exciting, is it? And I think a few people, myself included, will be very, very pleased to see the back of Brennan Johnson, who is just like 2-point city. He's not been very exciting to own. So I'm hoping for 2-1 Forest, Brennan Johnson, goal and assist. Nice little
Is that
Henderson.
Is that your checklist?
That's my checklist. Yeah. If anyone hasn't listened, get on Nip and a Half podcast. Paul mentioned his checklist. Sam says, got Martinez 2 games ago and has returned in both hauls tonight, and I'm laughing. Very well played. So I know you did mention that last week, didn't you, Paul, about potential for Martinez there.
Like a Pope to Martinez move. Whilst I'm not sure I would do it, but that is if you really wanted coverage, then that could do.
So on Friday, Brentford against Brighton. So we've touched on this a few times already. Plenty of people brought in Tony early for that. Trossard is obviously, he didn't look as attacking on the weekend as he did midweek. He was playing Spurs in all fairness, but I think McAllister for me now. I know you've got him already, haven't you? So he's probably your captain.
Yeah.
Dunk looks a really good option. Got passing again on the weekend. Brighton's fixtures, how do they look? Brentford.
They're a bit.
Forest.
The first 2 is good, and then
Man City, Chelsea after that. I nearly brought in Dunk. Well, if Dyer would have been injured, I'd have done it. I'd have done him for Dunk on
this is the beauty of McAllister, is that he's picking up tackle bonus as well as passing bonus. So when those types of players have tougher fixtures, they've still got an avenue to points if you don't think the team's going to score.
Yeah. No, I agree. Who do you think is the best captain on that day?
I'd go McAllister.
Okay.
I think. Well, yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? Like if Brighton come out attacking, you think it'll open up chances for Brentford. I've just never been a massive Ivan Toney fan in kind of any format of fantasy. I'll go McAllister.
Okay. Saturday the 15th, Leicester against Palace, Fulham against Bournemouth, Wolves and Forest, Spurs and Everton. We did have a question actually in the chat around, would you do Salah to Kane? Kane looks probably to be the best especially after watching Everton and Man United yesterday. Kane probably looks the best captain of the day, you would guess. Fulham home to Bournemouth, but we're not going to see the lineup with Mitrovic, so that will be a leap of faith there. Do you think Kane's the best captain of the day?
There's a few things to consider as well. You had mentioned earlier on about the Wednesday night on the 19th. Are you comfortable captaining Kane or someone else that you have in those fixtures, and not Salah at home at West Ham? Now, if you look at every game that we've said this about Salah so far this season and avoided that, you would have done well. Yeah. But I think you'd mentioned as well that all it takes is kind of one goal or to get a bit of form. Like Salah's a kind of player that could go through 3 or 4 games, but you wouldn't be surprised if you got doubles in 3 or 4 games in a row.
That Forest game for me as well, mate. That's at the moment that's a frightening game. Just look what Leicester. They've been dreadful. They batter Forest 4-0 and then they go and lose against Bournemouth. Yeah. Forest are the whipping boys. And I
guess your defence mechanism on that day is that you're going to default captain Haaland anyway. So
probably, yeah.
So you have that. It's tricky. I probably wouldn't move Salah to Kane for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned, but it's maybe easy for me to say sitting with both of them. I probably wouldn't make the move.
Okay.
There's a few other options, obviously. Yeah. Mitrovic and Maddison as well. Yeah. Palace didn't look particularly great at the back yesterday. I didn't think Leeds could have scored a few goals at the start of the game.
Leeds went off like a train, didn't they?
Yeah.
It was unbelievable, and they just kind of slowed off. But Sunday the 16th, 5 2:00 games. Not very often you see this. It's kind of like a Saturday 3 p.m. Villa against Chelsea, Leeds and Arsenal, United, Newcastle, Southampton, West Ham, and then Liverpool and Man City. Some pretty tasty fixtures there for some highly owned players. Go on, Paul.
So Sunday gives me for our new weekly bet on a player under 1% ownership. Yeah. And we're just doing score versus score, lose our £2 to charity.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to go for Chalobah, Chelsea.
Oof.
So I'm taking a punt on him playing.
And you just flipping heck.
But under 1%, I think I'd be pretty happy if he started, that I could beat you. Who your option is, but
well, you're not going to beat me because I'm going for Daniel Podence, Wolves at home to Forest. He will definitely return in that game. So
it's 1-0 Forest. That fixture right there.
I'm going for Podence. I think he's 0.7% owned or something like that. So, I've got a good feeling about this one, Paul. Normally, when we have our little bets, I'm thinking, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, you sneaky sod. But no, I got a feeling about this one.
Even if Podence gets a 2-pointer, you could still beat me because I'm gambling on Shelba starting.
Exactly that. As long as Podence doesn't get a red, I'm in the money. Villa and Chelsea, Leeds and Arsenal. So Martinelli and Jesus, lots of action there. United, Newcastle. That's going to be I think that'll be an interesting game. I find that one really hard to call, actually. Southampton, West Ham. Obviously, Bowen owners who went in early have been rewarded. He's done really well for him. Then Liverpool and City. At the moment, Liverpool's defence are an absolute shambles, and I can't see anything in that game but a Man City, easy win.
From not owning an Arsenal attacker, I'm relieved that Man City are playing on Sunday.
Exactly what you mean. Exactly.
So I can captain Haaland and not feel too worried about doubly losing out by Arsenal attacking assets doing well.
And if you remember, we spoke about this a week or two ago because I wasn't sure whether to take out Jesus for Maddison purely because of this potential captaincy against Leeds. And the only reason I did do it in the end was because of this Man City game. Otherwise, I would be tempted to stay with Jesus. But actually, that's not worked out well because I would have taken out Salah. But anyway.
I've used a couple more transfers than what I was hoping to use at this point. But I don't know that I couldn't be tempted if Maddison gets booked against Crystal Palace to move Maddison onto Martinelli, potentially.
Yeah.
I'd be giving it some serious thought anyway. Or moving him on to Bowen, maybe.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah, because you have the captaincy winning against Bournemouth as well.
And it just saves me it saves me the transfer further down the line. But a couple of things that I would potentially consider. I'd obviously, for anyone, it's that because I own Polina for the Thursday the 20th of October, then I would have a captain for that day.
I was looking at Bowen and his fixtures, and they didn't do a lot for me really. But I look at it now, it's got that big. Well, it had that big, horrible away to Liverpool game in there, which you would never expect him, but you'd actually expect him to get something now, wouldn't you? You actually would.
He's on penalties.
And he's on penalties, exactly. So, I'm really keen to discuss that question later around, FOMO, because I've definitely got it over so many players. Just a quick look into early next week, only because there's a midweek game, but some decisions we make may kind of carry on. So Brighton against Forest, Palace against Wolves. So there will be some people, most people who guess now would have a Brighton asset at home to Forest. This is why I'm tempted to go for someone a bit more attacking, someone like Trossard, for example, who could, even if he doesn't do much on Friday, that's a pretty good fixture against Forest on the Tuesday, isn't it? And then Palace against Wolves, obviously we know Zaha has been brought in by lots of players. Who do you think is the best captain on that day so far? It's a tough one, I think.
Yeah, I'd maybe go McAllister again.
Wow. Okay.
For me, there's not much between Dunk and McAllister, and I think both are very good captain options on both days. I think
McAllister is a better option on Friday, but I think Dunk is the better option against Forest on Tuesday. I think that's a pretty nailed on, say, haul, but kind of 9 or 10 pointer there. I think personally,
he's not scored yet, but he was getting on the end of some of the set pieces against Spurs as well.
He was. You're right. Wednesday, Bournemouth, Southampton, Brentford, Chelsea, Newcastle, Everton, Liverpool, West Ham, United, Evans. We touched on this. So I think these days are pretty tricky, all three of them, the captaincy. In terms, I don't think there's any massive standout option on any of the days. Salah home to West Ham would be the one, kind of any other day, definite. United have got Spurs. What's your thinking for best captain at the moment?
if you saw this at the start of the season and you didn't say Salah, you think something's wrong, eh? And then Van Dijk would be the second best captain option in that day. I think. I don't know, even the Chelsea defenders could do well, but I know that there's not a high ownership of
right.
Chelsea defenders just now, and there's a bit of rotation going on just now. Callum Wilson, Newcastle, look really, really good going forward as well. So that could be that Newcastle Everton game could be a good fixture for Newcastle forwards. At present, I'm still, I think I'm just going to keep the faith, go with Salah, and I think that if given the choice and I didn't own any and I had to pick a specific player that I think will do well in that fixture, maybe it's blind faith, but I'd probably pick Salah from, even if I didn't, if I did or didn't own him, I think to score the highest.
I think I'm going to wait till the evening and I'm going to have a look at the lineup, because if they pick a similar team to what they picked yesterday, Salah just wasn't involved at all. And West Ham defensively have improved massively as well, I think it's probably worth saying. So if they play, I know Diaz is probably injured, but...
What were you thinking, Kane?
Yeah, absolutely. I still think that, Kane against United, I think both teams will score. I can see it being, a 2-2 or something like that, personally. I think United beat him 3-2 last year. Ronaldo hat-trick won it, but I can see Kane definitely get something in that game. The same cannot be said for Salah at the moment, can it? It's very strange. Thursday the 20th, Fulham against Villa, Leicester, Leeds. So this is those who are thinking of bringing in Maddison. They're going to want to hope he doesn't get booked on the Saturday, because it means he would miss this game. I'm currently planning on doing Brennan Johnson. Kamara. I still got Kamara. I'm doing Kamara to McAllister on Friday, and I'll do Brennan Johnson to Mitrovic on the Saturday. And if he's not fit, I'll just leave it until the evening and then hope that Mitrovic starts on that Thursday. Otherwise, I got a decision to make there whether to bring Maddison back. So
Fulham's fixtures are incredible still, aren't they?
They're awesome. The next four are Bournemouth on Saturday, then they're home to Bournemouth, home to Villa, away to Leeds, home to Everton. So 3 out of 4 at home. And Mitrovic, and he's had a knock. That's a bit annoying, because you're not sure whether he'll go from nothing to 90, but the form he's been in, he's just looked like an absolute animal, just completely dominating games, dominating defences. They are 4 pretty poor defences. I know you could say that, everyone's saying, but Everton have conceded the least goals. That's not what their XG says. I think they've been quite fortunate. I think that Pickford also made some outstanding saves. I still think they're a poor defensive team. So you'll be on Maddison that day, probably.
I think so.
Unless he gets booked. Let's have a look at some of the questions. Thank you so much, everyone who sent in questions. Again, we've had so many, so hard to get through them all, but we'll get as many as we can. Aman Tatler has got Rashford in his team. Should I get rid or stick? And who would be the long-term ideal replacements? I definitely think, where's that Arsenal guy? I think Martinelli is probably a nice little replacement there. But in the short term, they've got a 3-4-1 and 3-4-2 of quite a lot of teams. What's it on Rashford, Paul?
Yeah, I'd find a good hop-off point. There's just too many good midfield options just now. We talked about McAllister, Martinelli, Zaha, Maddison, Bowen. We both think that Salah could easily come back into form in the fixtures that Liverpool's got as well. So it just seems like there's a lot of midfield options that I'd be considering over Rashford.
What I would do, so at the moment United have got a 3-1 over Arsenal, so I would see those games out and then I would jump on Martinelli on Sunday the 23rd of October away to Southampton is what I would be doing it ahead of a good captaincy game against Forest the week after.
And Foden and Saka are 2 more. Bruno Guimaraes.
Indeed. Alan also asks, best defender replacements for Fofana, assuming I have 3 at the back. I would say, I don't know, I personally think at the moment, if you've got 4 or 5 at the back, I'd look into midfield, personally. Someone like McAllister is the same price as Fofana, for example.
If if you're waiting a couple of weeks and say it comes out that Fofana's out longer term, maybe out to the World Cup or whatever, then you could move to Akanji as well. And I wouldn't mind missing. I wouldn't mind missing the one game against Liverpool to hold out to make that decision.
Yep, agree. Ollie Paul, has anyone seen Mo Salah? We've talked a lot about Salah. There's a lot of questions about Salah. So again, in summary, I think both Paul and I's summary on this is don't buy, but don't sell, because he could come back into form. But you are covered with captaincy with Haaland, assuming Haaland stays fit.
It's just even by the time that some other teams play, like he'll have played 3 games, even if it's 3-2s, yeah. 6 points in that time.
Golden Goal Fantasy Podcast. Who, if anyone, is a standout keeper at the moment? I have Henderson. I want Rid, but no one is popping out to me.
But there's quite a few questions about Kepa at 6.6. I mean, if he was guaranteed to play every game until the World Cup, then he's obviously going to be great value at that price. I don't know that I wouldn't move to like Martinez tonight. I think, or someone. Have they already got Henderson? I don't know.
He says have Henderson. I want Rid, but no one is popping out. A tough one, really.
If you didn't want to go to Bowen, you just mentioned West Ham's looking good defensively, so you could go to Fabianski. That covers you for the single captaincy day.
You could. I think I'd be more tempted to jump on Edison on Saturday 22nd. So Forest have got 3 games now: Villa, Wolves, and Brighton. City have got Liverpool, and then on Saturday, Forest go to Liverpool. But you could just jump onto Edison for those 3 and 4 at home. I just think Edison is, I've got Alisson, so it's a bit harder for me because they've got exactly the same games on the same game day, so it's literally a like for like change, and you never know. But I think Henderson to Edison, if you can afford it, obviously. Personally, I think I can see 3 clean sheets in 4 there. Don't know. Tim Barry, best captain on Friday out of Duncan McAllister. I think you've already said McAllister, Paul. Only just though on Friday.
Yeah. Both really good options. It'd be a tough pick.
Yep.
I'd captain McAllister,
I think I'd captain McAllister on Friday, but I would captain Dunk on Tuesday against Forest, personally. Dan Cox, is it worth not captaining Henderson tonight in case it's a minus score?
He's only got 1 minus score, and it was away to Man City.
And Paul Caffrey says, can't wait to get rid of Johnson after tonight. Oh, same. Every time I look at my team, he just stinks it out. I'm really, really excited to do it. Golden Goal again asks, and this is what I touched on earlier. Is a Man City block defence the way to go for the last 4 fixtures to the World Cup? So he's talking about from that Brighton game onwards on Saturday the 22nd. He says I can see 4 clean sheets there. It's interesting. You don't get any kind of extra fixture gains or anything, but what do you think there, Paul? So just a reminder, home to Brighton, away to Leicester, home to Fulham, home to Brentford.
Well, I wouldn't get rid of Salah, I don't think. And because of the lack of clean sheets and emergency midfield options, you're probably going to only be playing 3 at the back. So it's like a mini block, and therefore it's only 2 transfers. So Ederson, Cancelo, and then, I don't know, Akanji maybe. I think that as a 3 looks pretty solid for that run.
Yeah, agree. It's hard because it's not only who to bring in. And this is why in this half of the season, the first half, it's so difficult to make these lunges back and forth between teams because you're going directly up against, other teams, other captaincy requirements. In the second half of the season, when the games is more spread, you get these real natural 3-for-1s and 4-to-1s, and you can swing back and forth. So, assuming got Cancelo, even if you went for Edison or Akanji, having a double up, you would probably have a higher EO than the majority of the top 1K, I would guess. So, I think a double up would be good, either Edison or Akanji, maybe even Edison and Akanji, but I wouldn't be going. I would definitely be staying 3 at the back. Because there's, at the moment you can basically afford the best team. And like I say, you'd be taking out potentially Salah ahead of Forest and Leeds, for example. Kane against Bournemouth, Leeds and Brentford. It's It's tough going. It really is. I wouldn't bother yet personally. Sky FF Wilson, plan was to do Dyer to Salah this weekend. Am I mad? Still think he's the best captain. So half people are asking whether to take him out, and the other half are asking whether to put him in. Do you think Dyer to Salah this week, Paul?
Spurs have got pretty good fixtures. I don't know.
Yeah, they've got Everton, and then they're away to United, then they're home to Newcastle, Bournemouth, Liverpool, Leeds, and Brentford. I can probably see 3 clean sheets out of those 6. And Dyer is, I know he's got a couple of goals, which does inflate it, but he was just in front of Kane for the goal on the weekend. I thought it was Dyer who scored. I jumped up. I thought it was Dyer who scored, but I think Dyer is a surprised a lot of people this season. I think quite a few started with him and moved off him as well, but he keeps rolling the points in. He's either getting a goal or he's getting a clean sheet or he's getting a bit of passing. He's been doing all right. I wouldn't be in a massive rush to get rid of him. But yeah, if you think he's the best captain on Wednesday, you haven't really got much option really, have you? I suppose if you're convinced. Julian, there seems to be a lot of players scoring good points consistently all of a sudden, particularly mids. We can't have everyone. How are you dealing with the FOMO, sticking to the plan, not burning transfers? Salah burning a hole in my team, an obvious conundrum. So yeah, this is what I was talking about earlier. Sticking to the plan, Paul. How do you do it?
Well, I guess it's all when taking advantage of when these situations open up. So like the Maddison one last Monday, for captaincy, picking up player, moving them on. And then there's a few others here. So like Bowen's coming into form, and he plays that Monday night. So again, like in my opinion, that warrants a transfer. Like using it there, taking out a player that's perhaps going to go on not as great a run. So if Maddison does avoid all like that 5th booking, Leicester host Man City the Saturday after. So maybe that's the best time to come off him and on to Bowen. There's a few really high-owned players that I'm missing out on hauls from, so Jesus and Martinelli, but it's all part of my plan. I'm just looking ahead, look at the fixtures, try and make the 1 game advantages where possible in these situations, and especially if I feel that player is going to be the most owned captain, when I know that they'll be relatively well owned, but they won't be captained. Those are times when I'll probably consider leaving it and not doing the extra transfer at that point.
Yeah, I just add, I think every time I do a transfer at the moment, I try and think of when we get these big fixture swings in the second half, how much I'm going to want to go from, say Trent to Cancelo, or for a nice 4-for-1 or something, and how much points those transfers worth. I find it very difficult to warrant making lost transfers at the moment, because a lot of them are 1-for-1, right? And every time I think of one, I'll think, I'll go, Dyer to Anderson, which I was eyeing up, for example, this weekend. But then I look and I think, well, Spurs are home to Everton next week. There's 1 fixture gain. Do I really want to spend a transfer for potentially one fixture gain? For a good player to an all right player, whereas that could be a single day captaincy come April or May, a really banging one that no one else can get to, or a massive switch. So tough going, but yeah, I think Julian, you just have to play the long game, and and just think that look at your transfers, look at the averages, look at your mini leagues, and just think you've probably got 5 or 10 transfers probably on a lot of those players, and you'll make them count when it really counts, instead of at the moment, which is these 2-for-1s and 3-for-1s. Yeah, but it is hard after you have a weekend where say Foden, Martinelli, and Bowen all score. It's hard to sit on your hands, but I wouldn't be chasing yet personally. Colin Johnson asks around. Oh no, he doesn't. We've answered that one. Sky FF Jake, would you move Nico Williams to Dunk to cover captaincy, or hold Nico for a week and move to an 8 million City defender, Akanji or Ake? What would you do with Williams to Dunk, assuming he hasn't got a captain for that Brighton game? on Friday.
Yeah. Probably.
Yeah.
If you're going to move Williams to the City defender anyway, then it's one transfer more to get two Brighton fixtures, and then I don't know if they own Zaha or a Palace asset already, but that the Brighton player is going to be the best captaincy option on Tuesday if you don't own Zaha as well.
Yeah. Agree. We've had a few more questions on Salah, which we've done with. What to do with Pope? We've touched a bit on captaincies. Is it worth doing Pope to Martinez tonight? You quite fancy that, Paul, don't you?
I mentioned that last week. Yeah, I think goalkeeping transfers are underrated in this game, even though there's a lack of clean sheets this season. I was utilising a lot of goalkeeper transfers last season, and they worked out pretty well. So yeah, I definitely wouldn't rule it out. I think it's an okay move. What I would say is, if you do it, Forest could easily, like, an outcome of this game could be Forest scores one goal and they're not going to be attacking too much, so Martinez doesn't have a lot of saves to make. So 2 points doubled, 4. And then Villa's fixtures are okay-ish throughout, like thereafter. So I find it hard to not get disheartened sometimes if a player you bring in for captaincy blanks, and then you look at the fixtures and they're like, oh, well, they weren't that appealing when you compare them to Pope thereafter. But so I side on just the side of yes, but it comes with risks.
Peter Clinch, who incidentally, that was the name of my old headmaster. I wonder if that is you, Mr. Clinch, asks, are the best and most economical ways to dead end our teams for the amnesty? This is a good question, because I suppose this is what I'm looking at more now. I'm looking at how to economically kind of make my way to the end. I prefer Edison in goal. I think, like I say, I think Edison is a pretty decent way into, some really good points from Saturday, the 22nd onwards. Probably Bowen, I would say as well, in terms of getting him early for the captaincy, a good run of fixtures. But in terms of economically, I just wouldn't be looking for these constant 2 and 3 for ones. Personally, I think that's the way to just kind of stop, is just to get yourself, cover the key captaincies. Make sure you've got Haaland. Probably make sure you've got Cancelo, especially after 22nd. Have captaincy cover. Just have a solid team. Have Paulinho, for example, and just try not to get sucked into all the excitement of using transfers too early would be my advice. I think, Paul.
Yeah, in structure, I'm always conscious of structure when I'm making moves, but I don't think you need to be too conscious then if you've got the overhaul coming up. So that's one thing that I usually think about, that you don't need to think about. Other than that, yeah, I tend to agree with the points that you made there. Any 3 for 1 is going to require two transfers,
exactly.
like after this set of blank fixtures anyway. So it's worth considering that. Whereas there will be real 3 for 1s and 4 for 1s later down the season when games are postponed due to FA Cup, etc.
And there are 3 for 1s, but you've also got to think about which players you're bringing in for 3 for 1s, right? So the only team really at the moment, it's probably fair to say, who is ripping it up in the league, it's probably Man City. Arsenal are playing well, as well, to be fair. But if you're thinking of 3 for 1s for bringing in, just kind of average Joes, I would really reconsider and have a look at, there's only Man City, potentially Arsenal. So we touched on Martinelli, maybe Jesus, maybe Edison, maybe Akanji, maybe Foden. Other than that, who are you really bringing in is going to make a massive difference? Argument for Bowen with the captaincy, I suppose, for Bournemouth. Outside of that, I'm just not sure where I would really see the massive upside of the fixtures, because no one's playing well enough. Are they? Spurs aren't really playing well enough. Liverpool not playing well enough. Chelsea are not playing well enough. Don't know. A couple more questions. We've had loads on Salah, obviously, which we've answered. We've had a couple of questions about Kepa. I probably wouldn't go for it personally because you'd be absolutely gutted if he lost his place. Paul, are you tempted by Kepa at all?
Nah. No, and the reason is if he loses his place, I suspect that your budget will have been used on other moves, and there's going to be limited places that you can go after.
Yeah. And we've touched on keepers, so Paul thinks Martinez is probably the best one to go for. I'm a bit more keen on waiting and going to Ederson, so that answers Luke Thompson's question. And the final question is off Sam. He says, what would be the best move off Kamara, 1 million in the bank, with no captain tonight? So I'm in a similar boat, Sam, and I'm going Kamara to McAllister on Friday, assuming you haven't got a Brighton player. I would personally think that is worth. I think it's worth more because McAllister looks a brilliant Sky asset. 2 potential captaincies in the next week as well. 7.4 million. I think he looks a really good option there. So that's what I would do. Any different, Paul?
Kamara's like 6.8.
6.8. So he's got a million in the bank. So you've got up to.
So you could get Mitrovic. You can get Mitrovic 7.7.
He is 7.7 on Saturday. Yeah. Good shout. Glenn says he's been listening, but a crunchy box arrived. A pizza box. Is everyone just holding Man City Arsenal players during the blank? That's a good question. We haven't really touched on that. I ain't moving them because you want him back. I was tempted for Cancelo out, but I just know I want him back because they are just a devastating form when their fixtures are insane.
Yeah, agreed. I'm not taking any out.
I think if anything, I kind of look at the season so far, almost like split into three. You had the start when we're all kind of settling down. We've just had a bit now where we're kind of building our team. I think from that Saturday, the 22nd of October, is that kind of wind down time where you just look at that kind of dead ending. And so I wouldn't do an awful lot until that Saturday, and then. Like I say, City have got 4 spanking games. Arsenal also have 4 really good games. Away to Southampton, home to Forest, flipping heck. Away to Chelsea, okay, that's a tougher one. And away to Wolves. I just wouldn't be moving any of them out because you're going to want them back. So, agree. Thanks for all the questions. Apologies it's taken so long to go through them all, but we had so many. Hopefully that's, answered the vast majority of questions. And that is it for us for this evening. As usual, thank you all so much for joining us and for watching and listening. Your continued support is much, much appreciated. And thanks to you, Paul. Where can people find you?
On Twitter at Paul McAnulty, MCANULTY.
And my Twitter handle is at FFH_Fergi. Don't forget, try and listen to the Nip and a Half podcast. So Paul and I are doing it every Monday. It's about a 15 or 20 minute podcast where we talk Sky. We also talk Telegraph, FPL and Dream Team as well. A bit more of kind of a light-hearted look. So we're going to be recording that straight after this, and it will be up in a couple of hours' time. If you liked what you watched, please press the like button. Remember to subscribe in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. If you enjoyed your listen, please rate the podcast versions and leave some comments. It would be much, much appreciated. We'll be back next Monday reviewing the weekend's action and looking ahead to the remainder of Sky Game Week 11 and on to Game Week 12. Have a great week. Best of luck this evening. Come on, Brennan Johnson. And goodbye for now.